Welcome to Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. An e-zine of the Futures Forum live online. We exchange ideas, information, and inspiration about the futures we want. Get Future Sense Now with host Dr. Claire Nelson, futurist and editor of Human Futures.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Future Sense Now, an online e-magazine of the Futures Forum. February is Black History Month, and so we're having our annual conversation on the future history of Black America. Specifically, we want to explore how Blacks in America might be faring in the year 2030, 2040, 2050, and way beyond. We're having a slight focus on 2030 because it is said by 2030, America will be a majority-minority country, as well as it will no longer be the world's only superpower. Beyond that, 2030 is a poor year for the world. The UN Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030 speak about 17 issues, from education to zero hunger, to clean energy, to water and sanitation. And SDG 10 in particular is about inequality. We have with us today Dr. WEDNAUD RONELUS, who is the CEO and founder of Alchemist Club Studios. It is a important think, do research and education practice, which is aimed to democratize and revolutionize STEM education. His vision is a level playing field, education equity for diverse populations, not just in America, but across the world, for STEM education in particular. And he's been doing some marvelous work with children and preparing educators to teach children about how we can get totally involved in the world of science, technology, engineering, and math. So welcome, Dr. RONELUS. How are you?
It's a pleasure, Dr. Nelson. I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you for the opportunity.
I am so delighted to have you. We're going to talk about the future, a place where you certainly dwell. I've seen some of your videos. Many of your clients are 6, 7, and 8 years old. They are the future. So you're actually in the playground, the sandbox for the future. Let's talk 2030. Let's paint a possible picture. We're talking a world with 8 million people. We're talking a world with AI, which is going to be ubiquitous, Internet of Things, 400 billion mobile phones. We're contemplating how the future of work might play out. And that means a lot of things are being driven by technology, which is something you live and breathe. So I'm really excited about having you here today. So let us focus then in on the question of inequality. And I want you to talk from your vantage point as a thought leader in bringing this issue, bringing attention to this issue. What are some key things you think we ought to be thinking about, especially given the experience of the last 22, 24 months of living in a COVIDized world, right? Living through the COVIDemic. How do you see the Black community making moves in order to move this needle of disparity in the right direction? What are your thoughts on that? Let's start there.
Wow, that's a powerful question, and I appreciate you asking that. Well, I'm going to take it to you this way. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're talking about March 19 for me, 2020. I was one of the first educators in the New York City Board of Education system, which is the largest school system in the nation, to be charged with the responsibility of making sure every child at the school, the site where I work, have access to internet. And not only that, they had to know quickly, within 3 days was given to us for every educator in our district to be able to get on Google Classroom, learn the technology, and learn how to use the tools. Now you're looking at a space where you have educators who at time would not even want to check their email. Some people email would have expired months from the time where they never bothered to. So all of a sudden, the challenge became all of those people have to quickly get online, correct? So just imagine that. Now you're talking about inequity and everything else in between. Just imagine we didn't have any iPads for these kids. Most of the kids that live, especially where I am in the Bronx, as far as socioeconomic issues, we're in a massive crisis. So we had a massive issues under our hand. What I was able to do was to quickly, within a day or two, to train every educator in the system where I am to quickly learn how to use Google Classroom. And for myself, at that very moment, I realized we are in trouble. We in the Black, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color community, we are in trouble. Because if at the school level, in the largest school system in the nation, in New York City, we are facing this crisis where kids don't even have a basic iPad to get online. It took months upon months before the city was able to provide at least an iPad to every child in the system so that they can at least get online to do their work. So beyond that, if we just want to look at that as a microcosm of what the issues are, we have the internet problem. Okay, now they have the iPads. Most kids don't have internet access at home because their parents cannot afford it. So we were looking straight at the digital divide. This idea that's been going on for ages, for years, saying, well, this is coming, this is coming. We saw it firsthand. And quite honestly, the Black and brown community, they are the one that suffered the most. And I saw with my own eyes, because parents used to come to the school every day crying. Their children cannot even get online to do the basic learning because they didn't have internet access. So these are some of the issues that I would like to address here with you as we proceed.
Wow. I mean, you are talking about the past and the present at the same time. And I mean, I'm hearing you and I'm like flabbergasted that, I mean, in New York, the richest city in the world, Gotham City, right? Didn't have that available. And you said so many things that I want to unpack and try to get to at different points. So one of the things I want to talk about is this notion then of digital equity, and let's start with the teacher.
Okay.
Teacher access, teacher literacy around digital issues.
Right.
You said you were able to do a lot of training for the teachers in your school in 2 days to help them to get onto Google Classroom.
Correct.
Talk to me about, out of that experience, what might be generalized? What can we begin to generalize for the system shift that the Future Sense conversation is concerned with?
Beautiful, beautiful question. Well, quite honestly, what we observe, and me as an observational scientist, we quickly realize it's possible, especially when you're using a platform like Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams or the other platforms that's designed for education. We quickly realize the kids can quickly learn it on the fly. Because think of it this way, right? You have a lot of these kids, whether it's elementary, junior high school, or high school level kids, who are plugged into all these high level video games all day, right? So they know the systems better than us. So the issue is always an issue. How do you get a kid to quickly log into a platform and quickly understand it? And in our case, we quickly realized Google Classroom is very easy. It's very intuitive. Once you get into it and you explain the different categories and how the system is designed, you have the stream category and you have where the kids have the classwork, and then there's another tab for the grade system. Now, Google Classroom, believe it or not, they were able to provide access to the internet on the global scales, okay? Whether you're in Africa, you're in Asia, you're anywhere in the 7 continents, 1.7 billion people were able to quickly have access to education via that platform. So to answer your question, on a systemic level, we are living in a world now where it's become a platform economy, a platform world where if we ever have or face again with a pandemic, we will be prepared and fully ready. Because every kid right now in the New York City Board of Education have an account with Google Classroom. So that's why
I'm not worried about the children, actually. I'm focused more on the teachers. My question is the teachers, not the children.
Well,
and they're on the plan anyway.
The beauty of it, the teachers too also, because remember, every educator in the system now have access to one of these platforms. So you can practically take education right now and just go fully virtual. And it's possible now. We know how to do it because because, for example, this week, right, coming, the kids going to be off for 1 week, but they already have a program for kids who are falling behind on their content knowledge, right? They have a little program for them during the week where all the teachers who sign up, they're going to jump right on board on Google Classroom with the kids this week to learn. So the learning continues. So the answer to your question is, we are in a world right now, any educator anywhere on the planet can take their class virtually online because of the access we have to the technology. The only thing that's missing is democratizing that technology so that everyone in the world have a fair playing chance to be successful.
So you would say then you feel fairly confident that's to say then that Google Classroom as one of the key, let's say, linchpins of the system that helped us get through the last 24 months should by now be fully, let's say, integrated into every school system. And if it's not, then the question is, why not? Is that what you're saying? Because you're saying it's that simple, it's not that hard, we learned a lot. So if a school system anywhere in America, rural America, the plantations or reservations, America, rural Mississippi, where they're without, should you think have access to that? The question is, if they don't, what it is that your experience can offer to the school boards and the politicians in those states, black politicians in those states, who seem to still be saying that they have problems.
Well, quite honestly, no school in America, and I'll go on a global scale in a second, no school in America in 2022 should not have access to these platforms, because Google, Microsoft also, I want to not just mention Google, Microsoft also with the Microsoft Teams, they are very, very heavy into providing the platforms for all kinds or any education system in United States, period. They even allow free access to their platform when it comes to education. So there's no excuse. The only issue you're gonna run into, this is a massive problem, is the question of internet access. That's why with this 5G, because you can have Google, let's say hypothetically, Microsoft or Google offer their platform as a service, right? But if you're in a rural area where you have no internet access, then you got a problem. If right here in New York City, the kids had access to Google Classroom after I set up the whole system for the school and I helped the district and beyond, but yet kids were still suffering. Why? Because the portals were available, but they didn't have internet at home. So what the city was able to do then, they had to deal with T-Mobile, where T-Mobile provide free internet access. That's why that's what happened. That led to the kids able to complete their work for the year that we were in the height of the pandemic.
Okay, so we've learned a lot. Despite the tragedy, we have learned a lot. And this is important because, as you said, New York is the largest school system in the nation, right? It's a mega city. In the future, it's going to continue to be a mega city. And despite the population, quote unquote, decline, and we're an aging population, given the need for us to continue to be learning with technology changing so fast, it's not just classroom for kids who are like K through 12, it's the classroom for the adults who must also be retrained to live in this world.
Right.
So I want to come to the issue of the content, because maybe there's not much we can do in terms of getting the more partnerships or more rules changing between the providers of broadband, etc., and government, or we can come back to that. I want to go back to the issue of the STEM agenda, all right? Okay. So it has been the past that we were very much conditioned to believe that you have to teach physics in a physical lab. You have to teach chemistry in a chemistry physical lab, so you can pour things into beakers and you can pay it through a microscope. Tell me how that is shifting in terms of online education and online labs and online experiments. Tell me some of what you're seeing in the last, not just the last 2 years, but what was happening before that made the last 2 years bearable.
Excellent question. Well, I'll go back to it this way. My own doctoral study is based on where what I was able to do for my study. The company I was working with, we created a virtual simulation world where the project of my dissertation study was called Saving the Black Rhinos. So what we did, we created a simulation world where when the kid log in, the avatar landed in Tanzania. And as the avatar landed in Tanzania, they were going on a mission to find out why the black rhinos were being killed or poached. And in the process of going through the mission as a simulated character, right, they were able to find out a lot of times the poachers not just killing the rhinos because they want to, but this become a survival issue. So then what that did, it opened a conversation as to how do we go about providing for those people economically so that they don't have to end up killing these animals and drive them to the verge of extinction. Now, to answer your question, when it comes to physics concepts, the thing with physics and especially advanced sciences, you have a lot of scientific abstractions that is very difficult to get a kid to understand things like Gauss's law or vector fields and magnetic and electric fields, right? So at times, and especially in chemistry, if you're mixing different chemicals reaction to find out what synthesis the product you're going to get, you tend to believe that you must be physically in the lab. But in this day and age, that's not where we are. We have a technology at our disposals where in the lab, for example, we have some virtual reality systems where when my kids jump into the VR platforms, they are able to understand the periodic table probably better than someone who is in a physical lab. Because these days, these kids, again, you have to understand there's a mind shift. These kids, something happened to the world where I believe we have these rainbow children who are here now. And these kids are so plugging into the digital portals. So if we are able to create these virtual spaces for them to explore these concepts, they're going to retain it. Even Microsoft did a massive study. I just want to add a point with one of the medical school universities, where they teach an anatomy class, okay? Instead of teaching the gross anatomy using the cadavers, they upload the whole system in the Microsoft HoloLens. It was at Case Western University. It's a massive study that was done. And what they find out is the medical students were able to retain more knowledge, okay, and content better than them going to the actual physical lab to cut the cadavers and do all of that stuff. So this is where the world is going. The technology is at our disposal, and companies like Microsoft and Google and other entities, they have the technology for that to happen. And in my own experience in the lab, in the Alchemist Club studios, even though I'm working on a lower level, I've been testing these ideas for years. And I can tell you based on my empirical research and data I've collected, there's practically no comparison. This is where the world is going, and the technology is available for this kind of learning to take place.
So when we're talking about VR and AR, then yes, in terms of STEM literacy and STEM equity, it means then that underserved school, let's say in wrong side of the tracks of town X or town Y, right?
Yeah.
Could, if you had the mindset shift of the leadership,
yes,
be less disadvantaged, because now they don't have to buy equipment that is valued at, $100,000. Yeah. They may be able to get a software that they can get for $10,000 or $25,000. In your network of educators and science educators and etc., are you finding that the Black communities who are underserved are taking this up, or are there other, let's say, blocks in mindset that are actually preventing them from using what's currently available and what will become available even more so?
I think the issue for us, I don't want to go biblical here, but I will say something. It's kind of like in the book of Lamentation where Jeremiah said, my people are destroyed by the lack of knowledge. It's a question of awareness for me, right? Me as an educator, I've been digging into this. I've been into the STEM metaverse world for over 20 plus years, or close to 3 decades on my own, just to figure out what the issues are. Because my concern has always been the Black community, the Black and brown community. When it comes to STEM education, we have to find a way to level the playing field. So what you're saying here is excellent, because what can happen now, if these universities and Black enterprises were aware, We might not have $100 million to buy in this purchase these hardwares, but these days, even if you have an Oculus Rift with you, or you got one of those HTC Vive or one of those VR platforms that the prices are dropping very low, like you said, you can have a software system that's designed that can train the learner, whether in Africa, in Caribbean, wherever. They will get a solid state-of-the-art education and master these physical science concepts using these tools. A lot of companies now, they're doing this high-level training, right? There's a company called Tailspin who's coming out with a massive virtual platform where to upskill and reskill the workforce, they are going fully virtual, right? So why not us people of color who do not have access to $1 million of equipment, seize the moment and use these new technologies and be creative with them in such a way that we can educate the people. It's doable. And I'm telling you, I'm doing it on my level in a small school in New York City, in the Bronx, testing these ideas. And I'm working with Microsoft, Google, and all those big Goliath companies to test these ideas on the ground and collect this data. So to answer your question, yes, these days we have the technology for that to happen.
I was going to say, yeah, so you're doing this work and you're testing this with your studio and your club. And what fascinates me when I've been reading about what you're doing is what I call the need to kind of scale you not only in terms of replicating, let's say, or expanding club beyond your small club, but to scale you in terms of the research that you're doing to train the trainers. Are you finding that you're getting the kind of support that you really think is necessary for even in New York? Let's say there are, let's say there are 25 failing schools in Bronx, right? By failing, I mean the kids are not performing at the level that we think they should be, given the intelligence that they have.
Yes.
And if you had to scale that, do you think, what would you need, and what is the gap between what you would need to have to replicate your experiment now in those 25 other schools where you're not, because you can only be one place, but you have all this data, this research, this experience that should be replicated? What would you need from the school system? We have a new mayor, we're supposed to have new people. How can we very quickly take advantage of this shift because of COVID and the new elected officials, find a space to expand the work that you're doing?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, I'll answer it this way. Since Mayor Adam came into office, even the Chancellor, David Banks, I've really written those guys at least a couple of times, and I'm getting discouraged because here you have an African-American person who's sitting in a school, who has a doctoral degree, who has mastered all of these different things, and who has a platform. This platform, as far as to answer your question, scaling is not an issue for us. First of all, we have the Alchemist Club Studios website, one. Second, the content, the curriculum, and all of this stuff that we have, it's something I can map it to any school because I have a portal where any kids who's in New York City Board of Education, I create a portal inside the New York City Board of Education Google Enterprise system where any teacher can use the Google Classroom portal I create to take exactly the same work that I'm doing in the lab and map it to any classroom. So that there's no excuse. I even create for New York City Board of Education a portal on Microsoft Teams because every educator in New York City is using MS 365. And I now took it upon myself, okay, to create a portal which I call blockchain for educators, because this is where the world is going. We have entered the metaverse where we are in a space where every student should know about what is the blockchain, what is a cryptocurrency, what is NFT, and all these different new technologies that is going to drive the market. Eric Adams himself, he has taken his first paycheck in Bitcoins, okay? And he loves this new technology, this cryptocurrency. He had a big, massive initiative where he said he was looking for someone to create a blockchain curriculum for the city. Well, I'm here, and I already have created such a platform inside New York City Board of Ed. So to answer your question, the Alchemist Club Studios platform, we're already in Africa. We have entities all over, but it would be great for New York City to take the advantage and seize the moment and get in touch with Dr. RONELUS and any other entities anywhere in the world, I can take what we have done. I can have any kid from age 8 to 88 learning AI, deep learning, machine learning, IoT, you name it. All the latest technology is coming out there because we have the platform for that to happen, and it's doable. Okay, and I know how to do it.
Well, I am really excited to hear you say that, and my brain is turning over about what should be happening long after this interview is over about the future history of Black America. And so the question is, can we then take experiments like yours, one of the seeds of hope, and multiply and get these school boards, who many oftentimes, unfortunately, don't have people who are STEM literate. And that's a big challenge, I think. A lot of times the people who run for office are coming out of the social sciences and soft sciences. So they are political scientists, not to disrespect politicians, but they tend to be lawyers. They tend to be people who actually were afraid of math and science. And so it's oftentimes we have this like a cognitive dissonance. They know that these things are there, but there's a sort of a distance that they keep from it because emotionally they've always seen it as not something they quote unquote understand, and therefore not something they're comfortable with, and therefore don't want to talk about in public in case a reporter asks them a question they can't answer. I mean, it might sound trivial, but I think these are some of the reasons why we don't see that. But we need to have what I call, a meeting of the minds. So the next question comes to this issue then, okay, you're doing this work. How do we get more people? How do we get the New York City community-based media and the community influencers, be they, let's say, in the faith-based community, other community leaders who can begin to multiply, let's say, the mindset shift. My Smart Futures construct talks about creating a 10% Smart Futures lens of people who see the world the same way, and then can create the paradigm shift like we saw when we were trying to work on energy or gender or the LGBTQ agenda. All of these things had to get to 10% of people believing in these possibilities for it to shift. How do you think that the Black media, in this case in New York, could be better utilized? We have all these media houses, right? National, global, and local. And yet, what is missing? What is missing in terms of how we as, and in this case I put myself in as a STEM advocate, what is missing that we should be doing differently?
I love this question. I'm going to answer in a very strange way for you. Right now in the world, because of this metaverse thing that's going on, there's a shift, things that's happening under the table that every Black business person, people who are the elite of society that's pushing Black people cause to the universe should be aware of. And that is the question of the NFT, okay? The non-fungible token. I am, for example, affiliated with a Black organization called Tribe X, which I will send you some background information on. Let me show you how powerful Tribe X is. Tribe X is an entity that's designed for the cause of Black people, because they don't want, when this new metaverse technology come, we get left behind again. So what they have done, they create this organization where we have a virtual platform online where we have over 23,000 members from all over the world. And the cause of behind that is to push the minority Black people's agenda so that we can educate the masses, educate the children about all of these technologies that's coming, whether it's STEM, whether it's metaverse, whether it's blockchain, whether it's cryptocurrency. And I am one of the top moderators. What I've done in that space, right? I am the one who run this thing we call the Alchemist Hut. It's a space where I have all the information organized. If anybody want to learn what is the blockchain, what is cryptocurrency, what is NFT, all that knowledge is there for them. And people have been praising this space, okay, for learning. What I would suggest for your audience and everyone else who's looking into this is to get in touch with people like myself and you to find out how can we bring about a paradigm shift in this day and age when it comes to educating our Black and brown children. We love everybody, but we also have to deal with the crisis we are facing as a people of color in this country. We are in serious trouble because what's going to happen is, you think the digital divide is bad? You're going to reach a point where it's going to be the Hunger Game out here. Because if people don't have the skill set to measure up the standard in this digital economy that's coming, that's already here, we're going to run into a problem. And as far as the leaders who are not scientific literate, in a sense, to understand the science, I don't see that as a problem, because it's not what you teach, it's how you teach. Me as an STEM educator, I can tell you, I can teach a fly how to fly. I can teach any kid, no matter what level that person is, about the basic science concepts, because there's always a way to approach the subject. One way I would do it, yes, there's always a way. Like, for example, I have kids who are 9 years old who are able to set up this, you know the Google AI kids, who are able to set up this Google Assistant kits where they built the Google Assistant from scratch and they programmed this thing in Python. Why are they able to do that? They let go of fear, right? They don't have any fear. So how can we get adults to just let go of the fear of science, the belief system that this stuff is beyond me? I don't want to be put on the spot where they, like you said, they ask me a question and I'm embarrassed. No, you don't think like that. We have to be honest with ourselves. What we don't know, right? So there's always a way to answer a question. I will leave you with, I will add one more point. I remember a person was asking Eric Adams on New York One, what is the blockchain? He himself, he said, well, to be honest with you, even the experts don't know what a blockchain is. And I was laughing because you know where he's right, because these new concepts are so novel. It's a new science that's developing. Us scientists, well, I mean, I know what a blockchain is on the scientific level or technically, but his answer was the right answer. He wasn't scared as if, you know, he's going to embarrass himself, because he believed who he is and he know his level, his limit, and he played to his strength. So that goes on for anyone else in this space. The world is gonna keep moving forward. Either we get on board or we're gonna get thrown overboard. And I do not want my people to get thrown overboard.
I am laughing at that comment because I am one of those people who have read Blockchain for Dummies, Blockchain 101, and I was about getting this period now, because I kind of have, I would say, a feathering of an idea. I mean, I used to be a hotshot programmer back in the day, but that was back in the day before, you know, before Web 2.0. I'm from Web 1.0 days, right? I was there. I like to tell my young friends, I was there before the internet was invented, which is true, right? So I'm an old school programmer. So I'm reading this thing, I'm like, what are they talking about? I can see what it could do, but then how does that become a currency? I don't get the currency piece. I can get the blockchain piece somewhat, but I don't get the currency piece. And then the author of the book said, if you've got this far in the book and still don't know what we're talking about really, don't be discouraged and don't feel bad. A lot of highly intelligent scientific people don't know what it is either. So I laughed and I felt really good because I didn't feel so stupid. So now I'm comfortable with saying, hey, I've kind of understand it, kind of ish, but I still don't get cryptocurrency. And more importantly, I don't believe in it because I'm like, what if they pull the plug? That is my thing. What if they pull the plug? Where does my stuff go? And nobody has satisfactorily answered that question yet. But we have two more questions before I wrap up, and these are two quick questions. I'm hearing you loud and clear that this technology gap is there. You have been working assiduously from you got into this training in graduate school about trying to change this. But if you were to think now about what keeps you up at night, what is it that keeps you up at night? And what do you think, if you can't do about it, people like me and others who could be influenced or to be thinking about, so we can eventually get to do something about it?
Wow. Well, I'm glad you asked that question again. What keep me up at night? There are two things that's going on right now in the world, and I'm gonna go back to this whole metaverse thing. There's a new acronym that is WAMGI. Let me just make sure I said it correctly. And I'm going to say it out loud first. There's an acronym that says we all gonna make it. We all gonna make it. But there's another acronym that says we are not gonna make it. Now the question becomes, who is not gonna make it? Well, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. To be honest with you, my beloved scholar colleague, we are about to enter a very dark, heavy world if we're not careful. What's gonna happen is this. You're gonna reach a point where those who have gonna have so much, and the disparity is gonna be so wide that you will not be able to find an interface between the two levels. And what does that mean? It means people who have access to information, to knowledge in this new knowledge society that's gonna be here, they're going to be buying all of their cryptocurrency and invest into these non-fungible tokens in the blockchain network that's already here. It's gonna happen because it's already happened. A lot of people not even aware, they have no idea what an NFT is. Maybe 99.9% of people in the world have no idea what a cryptocurrency is, what the blockchain is, what a decentralized app is, what a decentralized finance is. This is the new world that's coming. And me as a person of African descent, a person of color, I see a great danger, because if we don't educate the young kids that are coming up to seize the moment and learn about this new market, they're going to enter a world where they won't be on an equal playing field. And this time around, we might not be able to catch up at all. So that's why organizations like the Tribex, which I'm a member of, is designed in such a way to bring Black and brown people to the table, so that when it comes to this metaverse thing, you see this happening, Facebook has it all over the place, right? People are just, it's a new buzzword coming. We all prepare for the new economy that's coming. And I would love, Dr. Nelson, for this conversation we're having here, not just to be a one-shot deal. This is a conversation we should continually be having with you. And I would love to introduce you to the folks from Tribex, because I believe you will be a powerful force of nature once you're aware of what's really going on and where we are heading. But I'll be honest with you, every night, my mind doesn't sleep, because we're in trouble. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's always good to look at the future from two perspectives. As a futurist, when I do workshops and coaching and facilitation, whether for individuals or for organizations, we're powered by two things: the future we fear and the future we love. So I want to end on the future we love, right? Yes. Because that is the aspirational agency of the smart lens that I use. So the smart lens is sustainable systems that we're creating, and the metrics that we're going to have to change to measure what really matters as humans. A is the aspirational agency we must adapt to be agile and adaptable. And then R, resilience, and T, transformational use of technology. So you are a maker, you're a doer, you are somebody who is in the lead of things. Because Alchemy Studio, the word alchemy is something I've always loved ever since I fell in love with Merlin, the magician, right? So think of Alchemist Future 2030.
Yes.
It's 8 years from now, I want you to jump into the future. Okay. I want you to think of all the young people that you've already seeded in this future and where they are going to be. Yes. You know what's coming down the pike.
Yes.
I want you to paint a picture of a successful story, a headline story that appears in 2030, hopefully somewhere in New York, even though New York is the capital of the news media to some extent, right?
Yes.
It may even be on one of those late night shows, which shows you how ubiquitous the idea is, right? Yes. Yes. An Alchemist Studio headline story somehow makes it into common verb. What is that story? And that's the story I want us to leave with.
Oh, totally. As a matter of fact, it's a story that's already in the making. I'm going to tell it to you this way, and it's going to come exactly in 2030. I've had one of my students that I've known from pre-K and K all the way. I've watched this kid. His name is Daniel Acosta. I've watched this kid grow throughout the whole school system, passing through the Alchemist Club studio as his first space to learn science. Now, this student is at MIT. He is a student at MIT that's doing a double degree in mathematical physics and pure mathematics. He's doing a double doctorate degree at MIT. At MIT. This is a kid, when he was in 4th grade, he came to me one day. He said, Dr. RONELUS, I just want to understand Maxwell's equations. Would you be able to explain to me what's going on in that space? This is a kid in kindergarten who came to me. His teacher brought him to me because she couldn't, he told me, this kid, you must meet this kid. And the kid came to me, Daniel Acosta. He told me Einstein was wrong. He told me space is not flat, and he could prove it based on the work he's done. And he's in kindergarten. This is what the kid told me. So this is a kid right now, to answer your question, who's at MIT doing a double degree in mathematical physics and pure mathematics. And he passed through the gates of the Alchemist Club studio. And I've had thousands of kids that pass through my hands that are everywhere around the world. My vision for 2030 for the Alchemist Club studio and the world is for us to have a platform that is decentralized. Education will become a decentralized playing field where I don't care if a kid is in Africa, in a small space, or if a kid is in Haiti or in Jamaica or everywhere, they all have equal access to knowledge. We will show the world that the world is flat in the sense of the knowledge space has to equal, so that we can reach our core principles as human beings, like you said. At the end of the day, it's a question of human dignity. How long can we continue for us to have this world where you have those who have so much, and then you have those who can't even eat a piece of bread? We must change this narrative in the world, and it will only be accomplished, Dr. Nelson, through education. And my mission in the Alchemist Club studio is to bring that world, and it's gonna happen.
Wow, that's a powerful end. I have nothing to add to that. I'm just so grateful we had this conversation on Black History Month, Future Sense Now, the future history of Black America. Thank you so much, Dr. RONELUS, for sharing this time with you. We will continue, but yes, I'm just so grateful for your presence.
It's a pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Yes. And so, folks, as we wrap up, just to say again, thank you to Dr. WEDNAUD RONELUS. He's the CEO of Alchemist Club Studios, and it's a research and education practice that's about democratizing and revolutionizing STEM education for all. We have just enjoyed a fantastic conversation where we explored salient ideas about how we create sustainable futures. Remember that the future is embedded in the landscape today, like Daniel Acosta at MIT, right? And so we're going to go out and seize and co-create this future. And as we say in Jamaica, until next time, safe journeys.
Thank you for listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson. Future Sense Now is produced by the Futures Forum in Washington, D.C. For more information, visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Remember, our futures are embedded in the landscape of our present stories. Seize the day, share this story, and share the future.